Hello and welcome to the Sustainability Commission meeting. Meetings are broadcast live on Glendale TV, viewable on Spectrum Cable Channel 6, and on AT&T UVerse Channel 99. Meetings are also streamed live in high definition on the city's webpage, glendaleca.gov/live, on youtube.com/myglendale, and on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire devices using a free app called ScreenWeave, and also choosing Glendale TV from the menu. Meetings are also archived on the city website for viewing at glendaleca.gov/agendas. Please call 818-548-4013 for program schedules. DVDs of the proceedings are available for purchase in the city clerk's office. For public comments and questions during the meeting, please call 818-937-8100. Public comments on a specific agenda item will be taken when that agenda item is discussed. If you have questions about matters on the agenda or requests for assistance, please contact the Management Services Department at 818-548-4844 during regular business hours. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bartrosov?
Here.
Commissioner Bazemore?
Here.
Commissioner Cartoonian?
Here.
Commissioner Pinkerton?
Here.
Chairperson Werner?
Here.
Ex officio Borsov?
Here.
Ex officio Kudo? Here.
Okay, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. And I would like to start with a land acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge that we are holding this meeting in the city of Glendale on the traditional land of the Gabrielino Tongva people. We would like to pay our respects to the elders, both past and present, and the Tongva communities who continue to be stewards of this land. Okay, first agenda item.
Next agenda item is 1C, report regarding posting of agenda. The agenda for the October 6, 2022 meeting of the Sustainability Commission was posted on September 30th, 2022 on the bulletin board outside City Hall. Item 2 is approval of minutes. 2A is approval of the minutes of the Commission regular meeting held September 1st, 2022.
Great. And does anyone have any comments for the approval of minutes before we go ahead and ask for a motion on those? Okay, I move we approve. Do we have a second?
I can second it.
Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Bartrosov?
Yes.
Commissioner Bazemore?
Yes.
Commissioner Cartoonian?
Yes.
Commissioner Pinkerton?
Yes.
Chairperson Werner?
Yes.
Next item is 3, board member and staff comments. 3A, introduction of Commissioner Cole Bazemore.
Yes, it's my pleasure to welcome to the board Cole Bazemore. He's the appointee of City Council member Ellen Asatrian. Commissioner Bazemore has a master's degree in public administration and environmental policy from the University of Washington. He currently works for the Federal Emergency Management Agency as a public assistance program delivery manager and as a member of the Glendale Environmental Coalition and Walk Bike Glendale. And he volunteers with the city's Community Services and Parks Department and several local organizations, including Friends of the LA River, Heal the Bay, and Tree People. And I'd like to invite Cole to speak a little bit more about himself.
Yeah, thank you, Chairperson Werner. I do have a few things to say. I want to start by thanking my fellow commissioners, former Commissioner Congian and the Sustainability Office staff for all the work that they've done to make Glendale a more sustainable place for those that live, work, and visit this city. I also want to thank Councilmember Asatrian and the City Council for the opportunity to continue this work. A little bit about myself. I'm an avid gardener and cyclist. I live in the Citrus Grove neighborhood with my wife Erin and our orange tabby cat Winston. I'm very excited to be part of this commission as I believe local action is the most important way to affect change. As is often said, think globally, act locally. Regarding my professional background, I'm an emergency manager for FEMA, so when I think about sustainability, my first thought is climate change and the worsening disasters happening throughout the United States. Hurricanes and floods are inundating the east, southeast, and Puerto Rico. There's inland flooding in the Midwest and disruptive weather throughout the Great Plains. In Alaska, sea level rise and melting permafrost are causing Inuit communities to quite literally fall into the sea. And of course, wildfires and drought continue to decimate the West. There are no silver bullet solutions that will prevent these disasters, but I do believe sustainable communities and sustainable practices will go a long way toward mitigating the harm. Our actions today will impact the world tomorrow. I also believe deeply that sustainability work requires a whole community approach and must be looked at with an equity and social justice lens. Sustainability is not easy and must include the voices of communities of color, low-income individuals, and other marginalized groups. Without these voices, the results will not be nearly as good. Once again, I want to say thank you, and I'm very excited to be here and look forward to the work ahead.
Thank you and welcome. We look forward to working with you. And I believe David has a introduction to make.
Thank you, Chairperson. Well, I'm actually going to ask our Sustainability Associate, Elizabeth, to make the introduction of our new intern.
Yes, I'd like to introduce Nora Karakashian. She's our new intern for the office. Nora is a passionate environmentalist and community organizer pursuing a degree in political science with a minor in sustainability at Arizona State University. She's in her final year of study. She spent the last year in Germany and Leipzig as part of a citizen exchange program and hopes to implement what she learned locally. I'm really excited to bring Nora onto the team to help with our outreach. Nora, do you want to come up and say a few words?
Hi everyone, I'm grateful to have this position. As a young person, I used to volunteer and protest for sustainability and the environment a lot, and it's nice to be both still doing that, but also working in the field too. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Welcome.
Welcome.
And did you have any other comments to make? Okay. So next agenda item, please.
Next agenda.
Sorry, I think there's
Oh.
commissioner comments.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a quick question. So this would be the time for me to request for somebody to make a motion to agendize something for the next meeting? Is this the proper time for that? Yes?
Yeah.
All right, wonderful. So then can I request someone to agendize for next meeting to vote to support Metro Go Pass for Glendale Unified School District and advise City Council to support funding Metro Go Pass for GUSD students? I was doing some research last week and I found out that actually GUSD is not part of Metro Go Pass for some weird reason, but most, like GCC is part of it recently, and a lot of K-12 schools in LA County are part of it, so I think it would just be great for GUSD to have that opportunity as well for its students to use Metro Go Pass.
I would be willing to agendize that. Do we have a second voting commissioner that would like to do that?
Second.
Okay. So if we could put that on the agenda, that would be great. Thank you for suggesting that.
Thank you.
Did any other commissioners have any comments?
I have a question about that. Isn't the funding limited on that? It expires at some point?
That is correct, but I think recently they got another $1 million grant from the federal government, like last week or 2 weeks ago.
Okay. So it's not going to run out in the next month or so?
No, I hope not, but I don't believe it will. I know for GCC it's about $6 or $7 per student, but for K-12 it should be about $3. So if anything, it should be cheaper for the city. Yeah.
And if we can encourage ridership, then it'll be an easier argument to make for more permanent funding, I would think.
The reason I ask is, speed is of the essence here. We can't debate about this or, take 6 months to send it to council. It needs to be quick because money runs out at some point.
Yeah.
Commissioner Warner. I'm sorry, let the commission members go.
So I wanted to just mention and thank the Department of Public Works for a very successful compost giveaway that happened last weekend. So Commissioner Bartrasov and I attended that, and We got some of the free compost that was given away by the city that's actually generated using the food scraps that are collected from city residents by in this case, it was the Athens hauler. And it was very successful. They gave away what seemed like at least 5 or 6 yards of compost. And Commissioner Bartolome and I each have a plot at one of the local community gardens, so we were able to use a lot of that for our garden. And anyways, it was very well done, and I just want to thank again the office or the Department of Public Works for that.
Right. So how does that work? Do you bring your own container, or do they give you one?
Yeah, so the program is set up in a way where they have the container with the compost in it, and you would just drive up or ride up or get there however you will to pick up soil. So you bring your own containers, whether they're bags or whatever you want to transport the soil in, pick it up and take off with it. So very easy, very simple. There were several people there when I attended, and they were giving away seeds to get people going on their gardens. So it was very exciting. And I think what we had heard from staff was that they plan to do this, I think, every other month, from how I was understanding the schedule. So hoping we get more turnout. This was the first one that the city had done. So I think it'll pick up from there.
Is it not a permanent site where so it's not a permanent site there, you have to have staff there?
Yeah, this was at the GCC parking lot, just south of Mountain.
Right, okay.
So I don't know if they're gonna be rotating locations, or this is like their established location at this point. So we'll have to see and engage Public Works if we wanted to follow up on that.
It's already, I'm told that it's already on schedule. They're going to come back in November. It's already scheduled for the same site.
Right.
It's November 5th.
I believe so,
okay.
yes.
And apparently they'll be rotating through each of the different haulers throughout the year. So each of them are scheduled to do 2, and I believe the city itself, from the collection they do, will be doing a giveaway as well.
Great. Okay. So last call for comments. Oh, I think we have one more. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead. Yeah.
So I think at the last meeting, we discussed about planning a student project plan. And so we got together this month to talk about that. And we thought as student commissioners, the most logical thing to do is reach out to other students. So we wanted to plan a student outreach program where we would go to all the schools in the GUSD district and talk about a lot of different topics like the Metro Go Pass for prospective GCC students, and then also about volunteer opportunities in the month that we're presenting. I know right now we have the Glendale Community and Connect event, and then there's also the Duke Mason cleanup event as well. So I guess telling the students that there are these opportunities available to them that they might not have known, and just, I guess, reaching out to the student population about the volunteer opportunities available in the city, and then also to promote the sustainability and environmental clubs at those schools. So right now at Clark Magnet, I have the CMHS Earth Corps, and so the entire point of this is it's a student outreach program for sustainable volunteering opportunities, and also collecting data for citizen science surveys, and also creating them as well. And I just hope to be able to go to these other GUSD schools, maybe GHS, and then reaching out to their students to see if they have any environmental clubs who might want to collaborate. And we would just go maybe during lunch or sometime during the day to have a presentation. Mike and I would be there and just talk about things that we would like to go over. But we wanted to present this to the commission first and see if you had any ideas what else we could present about, and also if we could have it agendized possibly for the next meeting so that we can get it approved to propose to the schools that we want to go to. Is there anything else?
No, thank you. Yeah.
I move to agendize, unless,
Yeah.
okay.
Second.
Thank you.
If I could toss in one suggestion, this is not going to be a fun thing, so maybe you'd want to do this later during your project, but it strikes me that too few residents anywhere know about the infrastructure of their own cities, landfills, sewage treatment plants, all the things that, we throw things away, we flush things away, they go down the drain. We have no idea what happens to them at the end. So just wanted to suggest that maybe you could arrange tours for some of those facilities. We've got the LA Glendale sewage treatment plant right over here by Griffith Park, the landfill, just so people understand, things are never gone. See where they go, so.
Yes, I think that's a great idea. Thank you so much.
Oh,
I would
sure, yeah.
definitely
Thank you.
plan that out.
Yeah, thank you for that. That sounds great, yeah.
I've always wanted to do that.
And a field trip to attend the Sustainability Commission meeting, I'm sure is high up on that list somewhere.
Field trip, okay.
Fill some of those seats out there. Okay, so was that?
Comment, and I have another one. Jillian, if you want to take her
Oh,
first.
yes.
Sorry.
Yes, I'm sorry, this would come under staff comment. I just wanted to alert the commission that as of the first of the year, there is a new Brown Act provision
Okay.
that will be allowing for, under certain circumstances, remote attendance. And so I will be providing specific information to the commission about that, and so that you'll understand whether or not you qualify to take advantage of that, if it becomes necessary. It's based on just cause and emergency situations, but it's sort of a recognition of, the experience we've all had during the last several years, and that it is essentially doable, so long as there's a quorum of the commission members in attendance on site. So I'll be providing more information to you about that.
Great, thank you. Okay, anyone else?
Two comments, if I could. I did not watch the entire council meeting, but I believe the environmentally preferable purchasing ordinance was passed, I think. I think I'd asked many months ago, and I don't know what the procedure is for this, if we could get a list of major contracts, the products and commodities that are listed in the report. I learned that the city buys through the counties for copy paper, but I don't know, do we have annual contracts for things like motor oil? All those major basic commodities and products. I would just be really interested in knowing if we have annual contracts or if those are spot buys. And if they are annual contracts, it would be really helpful to see the specs for the products. I'm just trying to gauge where we are now, where we might need to be in terms of a viable EPP or robust EPP program. And then my second question is, I don't know, does the city have a print shop, or do you send all print functions outside? You have a print shop, okay. Well, along with environmentally preferable purchasing, Senate Bill 1383 requires procurement of 30% recycled content paper. That's a state law now. But I've noticed almost all literature I've gotten from the city over the past 9-8 months, nothing references that it's printed on recycled paper. And it would be very helpful because the usage of recycled paper has declined over the past many decades, and I think it would just be great if you could have a legend on there that was prominently displayed, because we should be doing our best to help promote the use of recycled paper, and I just noticed I don't see that anywhere, so. Thank you.
One more, if I may. If we are going to contact the print shop and tell them about the recycled paper, can we also suggest that all, pamphlets should have QR code? I know in my job, we've started adding it the last couple of years, and it has significantly reduced the number of people that go to conferences and just grab things for the sake of taking a copy. If you're interested, a lot of people, those that are, conscious of what they use and throw away, will scan it and they'll have a digital copy of the brochure. So in general, public-facing documents, brochures, should have a QR code. It's not that hard nowadays.
Yeah, there's even free apps where you can download the QR code and so.
One more
Yes.
request for something to be agendized for next meeting. Is it possible to request Beeline staff to advertise Metro Go Pass on their bus lines that run through GCC? I personally know a few students who weren't aware of the program, even though they got emails. And I was just wondering if maybe they could work with GCC Cares or Beeline to have a little advertisement on top that says if you attend GCC, you can use the bus for free, essentially, if you sign up for Metro Go Pass.
Sounds like something that the College Board would be involved with? Or you're saying it's on the metro
I
line,
believe
or?
it's Metro, but also Beeline. I'm not sure about the specifics of advertisement on buses.
Normally they're magnetic, removable, so I guess a lot of it would be like who pays for it and that sort of thing, but maybe, I see David taking notes, so it sounds like he's going to check into it for us.
It's probably something to ask Beeline staff about and see if it's something they can do. But if you're able to just update the commission on your findings.
Yeah, I don't think we have time to bring back a full report, but we will be able to bring back an update at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I also wanted to see if there was another thing we could agendize, potentially not next meeting or one of the future meetings, since it sounds like we're filling up, but I understand that the city council did approve a resolution in August regarding the increasing solar use in the city or within the power portfolio for the city up to 10%. That's now, I believe, enshrined or in the code. Anyways, I was hoping to see if we might be able to, as a commission, ask to be somewhat involved in that process, or at least be able to look through, consider maybe the consultants that they're considering, and kind of be more involved in that process. Would be wonderful, because there are a few requirements that are set out in that resolution that the city is actively working towards, and I believe the first one is a selection of a consultant in sometime later this year. If anyone would be willing to, I guess the motion would be.
Yeah, I think that was part of the electrification and solar thing that we talked about, or, a few meetings
The building
back, or
electrification?
yeah, the beach codes, or is this separate from that completely? But because part of that, well, the city or the state is, they have their own rules about requiring things to be solar ready, and then the code is changing even more in the future. But David, is that planning to come to us anyway, or?
That REACH code is separate from the resolution that was
Right.
passed by
Okay.
City Council. I think what you're asking for is, the selection of the consultants. I think that's an administrative role, so that would be undertaken by staff. So I'm not sure how much input the commission could have
Okay.
on those administrative actions.
Okay.
We've been given direction from City Council in that resolution, so staff will now go away and undertake those actions to assume come back to City Council with a report
Right.
on how they'll complete those, what's been asked of them. I think what we probably can do is, as staff start preparing that report, ask the staff who prepare the report to come back and present to the Sustainability Commission
Yeah.
on their work. But I don't think we can ask the commission to be involved in those.
Okay.
I said there's administrative.
No, and that makes sense. Thank you for helping kind of interpret what I was asking. I think that would be my ask, is once that is ready, we could take a look and give some input, I guess, if that's possible. Yeah.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, would be for information only. Yeah, thank you.
Great. Okay, so sounds like we're out of comments for the moment, so let's move on to the next agenda item.
Next agenda item is oral communications. Discussion is limited to items within the jurisdiction of the Sustainability Commission. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. Sustainability Commission members may question or respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. The matter may be referred to staff for investigation and report.
Okay, I have a speaker card from Kathy Yurka. So you have 5 minutes, Kathy.
Good evening, thank you. I'm here on behalf of the Verdugo Woodlands West Tree Committee. Great, thank you. In July, I came to this commission and asked you to consider recommending changes to help the urban forest. It's terrific that we're planting more trees, but we have to make sure to care for them. Next slide. So these are just a few of dead and dying trees. A few blocks from my home, I took these photos yesterday. Keep the one on the right in mind. Next slide. Next slide. So violations are complaint-driven, and I'm going to discuss some cases where people did complain, and very little has happened. I was told by Public Works to make public records requests to get further information. This is a property on Kalina where the owners were required to protect oak trees to build a new house. On the left is damage from construction trucks in 2020. It took them a few months to succeed in finally wrapping the oak to protect it. More than 6 months ago, they planted hedges within a foot of that same protected oak tree, right through the roots. That has still not been fixed. There are people living in the house, and there has been no fine administered. Next slide. This is another property on Wabasa Way. You can see hedges also within 1.5 feet of a protected oak tree. That oak, I asked you to remember, the one that's dead, the owner had also planted hedges right up to the oak tree. Now they fixed it, and it's impossible to say that's what killed the tree, but it certainly didn't help. Next slide, please. This property, Camulos, they remodeled the house through administrative design review. They didn't submit a landscaping plan, and they ended up putting a lawn right up to 2 oak trees. Lawns are really promote root rot in trees. There was a complaint made in 2020. You can see the situation yesterday. Nothing has changed, and the canopy is really suffering. Next slide, please. I presented this tree, which was one of the most magnificent trees in our neighborhood, in July. Next slide. They've had problems for a couple of years. Here are letters in 2022. Note that there are numerous violations. They've been approached multiple times to remove the material behind the tree, to restore the soil, and to water. They only removed the storage behind the tree when Dad Brotman, after a month, got the city to issue a stop work order, and then it was gone within a day or two. They have still not watered the tree. Next slide, please. So the next slide is behind. Oh, sorry, yes, that is the slide. The photo on the left is one that the owner submitted to demonstrate what great care they were taking of the tree. Next slide, please. This is behind my house on Niadrera. The owners of the property behind us have 2 heat lamps and a barbecue, and they roast the branches of our tree, and then when they die, they cut them. Next slide. This is just an image of the equipment that's under the tree. Next slide. And you can see these letters from Public Works following 2 complaints. There's the same language. There's a history of improper pruning, and it's imperative that the tree's condition remain optimal. There's been no fine, although there's the threat of a fine in the second letter. They also say that if you've performed any construction near this tree, please contact me for an inspection. Next slide. We submitted this satellite photo showing that the entire yard has been hardscaped, and including under half of the canopy of our tree. The owner should not need to contact them to say, come and fix my problem for me. This is ridiculous. Next slide. Also, and again, no fine. So what the city is doing isn't working. Penalties have no teeth. The fine is only $2,000 for killing an oak tree, and it's not even imposed. We would like the fine to be increased. We would like it to be imposed when there are violations to discourage such behavior. We think it's really important that building inspectors know how to recognize damage to trees so that they can deal with it rather than depending on people to complain and complain and complain. We added a couple of things there. I know that staff had been concerned that the commission and the council had just discussed protected trees, but I watched the hearings and there was nothing like this there except for the bullet point about adding trees to the protected list, which you guys voted against and we removed. But I really do think that it's important that trees have to play a crucial role in our climate strategy, and we are just losing mature trees left and right. And those were just 3 photos of dead and dying trees. They're all over. So thank you very much for your consideration. I know you've agendized this item, so I just hope it will be coming back and we can really just help protect the urban forest. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Kathy. Yes, we have definitely lost a lot of trees in the city, and you can imagine how long it would take for a tree to get to the size of those trees. And I know they're replacing them with small trees, but you know, it takes generations for these trees to really provide shade and beauty to a street. So it's very unfortunate, and looking forward to that coming back as a agenda item. Okay, so, oh, did you have a
Just a
comment?
question, so this item is agendized for a future meeting?
Yeah, we had talked about it in the past, as far as like the enforcement piece of it and so on, after Kathy's previous presentation.
I will have to look back through the minutes.
Okay, I'll just say, just real quick, I guess in preparation for that agenda item, if we can just be notified as commissioners so that we can ask questions in advance and just be made aware of this agendized item so that we can have a robust discussion at the time of the agenda item.
I was just, sorry, apologies, Commissioner Pinkerton. I was just reminded that we did, a couple of months ago, came back with a presentation on urban forest to the Commission, and I don't think there was any action items after that presentation that was given, so, but we'll go back and have a look at the minutes.
Okay. Just a comment, if I may, it would be very helpful when this comes back, once it's agendized. Could we get a one-page fact sheet from city departments? Because I actually don't know your process. Do we have an arborist? In what department does the arborist work? Do reports, complaints, are they phoned in and do they go to a hotline and then they're forwarded to, I just don't know the process here. And also, I would think a lot of these look like pretty egregious violations. I mean, when you're pulling building permits, you mentioned there were no landscaping plans and things like that. It seems like an oversight that those things aren't included. You know, that you should have to present a plan where storage, construction material storage will take place and things like that. And then the last thing that just struck me, this is probably very big and broad, but if we're having trouble watering street trees because we don't have irrigation to them, maybe that's an ideal student project.
Yeah, so since it seems to be, there's a question about whether it's agendized, I think we have three of us here are wanting to agendize the enforcement of this, and maybe it's not the same thing as the urban tree canopy information report that we got a while back, but it does seem like we're not doing enough to stop trees from dying, and it's less expensive to keep something from dying than it is to replace it, and all the watering that it needs while it's getting established and all that kind of thing. So
can I ask for clarification what you'd like agendized? Because
yeah, it's more like tree protection, like when people are doing construction projects, there should be a construction fence that's put around the drip line of the tree, or actually the critical root zone, which is about 120% outside the tree diameter. So yeah, like a maintenance fence, and so that construction equipment isn't being stored there, and the tree's not being damaged, and that it actually says, you know, the tree should be watered, you know, if it's not raining a lot or so on, since we are in a drought. And those are pretty common conditions that go on a building permit. So, you know, I'm not sure how all these were happening, the trees being so close by, and that should be for any street tree or any tree that's in the area, not even just the indigenous ones. I mean, you know, I think the other trees, you know, deserve a little care. Maybe that's why we lost so many of them, because they haven't. But like these
Madam Chair,
leaflets
members of
and
the
things,
commission.
you know, we could do something
I'm sorry
like
to
that,
interrupt.
but-
This is oral communications. There's no debate or decision to be made on these items. It can be referred to the staff for information and report. What I was just going to suggest along these lines, many of the issues that have been discussed here in response to this question are addressed within our code and within our procedures, and I understand that part of what Commissioner Pinkerton was interested in knowing about is what are those processes and procedures for enforcement, the construction requirements, the inspection requirements, the watering requirements, and things like that. That's an information item that staff can put together and bring back, so that hopefully that will generate more discussion or maybe some input and recommendations, and if necessary, that can be brought to the City Council for consideration if modifications to existing code may be necessary.
I was just trying to clarify what was different this time versus when we talked about trees in the past, but yeah. for the agenda. Mhm.
Madam Chair, one thing that it would be helpful for the staff to compare with other jurisdictions, I'm sure we're not the only ones that have protected tree ordinance. And it's pretty obvious that our fining or threatening to fine letters are not working. What are other mechanisms out there that cities employ? I don't know. I mean, my philosophy is that, fine should be as a last resort, but it's obvious that the current formula is not working. So I'd be interested to know what some of the neighboring cities or best practices in this area. What else can we do that we're not doing? And maybe we should review the options and recommend something to the city council to adopt. So that's, my recommendation to the staff. When you look at this, look at also some of the best practices in the area. What are other cities doing?
I think I have read about this, but I couldn't tell you where, an escrow account where funds have to be deposited prior to construction, and then they're held until the project is over, and there's assurance that no damage has occurred to street trees and things of that sort.
Okay, so it sounds like we can save this for when it's on the agenda, but do we officially, okay, so I'm saying, can we put it on the agenda? Could I have a second? So there's no question that we agendize it, okay.
So just, Chairperson, I'm going to, the Commission asked for a number of items to be agendized for future meetings so far today. Our workload's incredibly high. We will agendize and we will work with the chair to look at future agendas over the next couple of months to let you know when these items will be coming up. But it's not possible for these agendas to be for at least the next 2 meetings. I just want to make the Commission aware of that.
Thank
We're
you.
loading the hopper.
Yeah, we don't want you
And David, thanks you, I'm sure.
out of content, yeah.
One other comment, maybe for things like this, because if we don't know, I'm sure a lot of people don't know, so maybe informational meetings. I know in the City of LA, I'm trying to get a lot of online training that's just out there, or fact seminars where they're accessible to people all the time. So a presentation possibly from Public Works or whatever departments where, so the public can find out too. Thank you.
Okay, so was that it on the comments? I think we broke the record on comment period.
I had a quick question. I'm not sure if anyone knows this, but I tried to Google it and I couldn't find it. When we fine, I know she said about $2,000. Does part of that go to replanting more trees or keeping up current trees? Just a quick question.
We'd have to, members of the commission, ex officio, is it Borisov? Yes, Borisov. We'll have to get back to you in exactly how the fine is administered after it's collected and whether or not a portion of that is to cover the costs of enforcement. That's pretty typical if there's any additional. So we can definitely provide that bit of information as part of the process, information that we'll be bringing back on this item.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay, so can we move on to the next agenda item?
Okay, next agenda item is 5, reports and information, 5A, creative paving solutions.
Right, I'd like to introduce Jano Rahav of the Creative Paving Solutions, located right here in Glendale. And joining him is Jeff Glenn from GAF, who's the manufacturer of the product that, street bond coatings product that he's going to be speaking about. So I invited them here because as a construction specifier, I'm always looking for new solutions that can be solved by products, and it's difficult to find products that can reduce temperatures in the built environment. And so when I heard about this and how LA Unified is using it and so on, I thought more people in Glendale need to hear about this. So please take it away, Jano.
Hi, you guys hear me? Perfect. Thank you so much for having us here. I really appreciate it. Our ultimate goal is to combat urban heat, and having a platform like this is a great way to get our message out there. So I just really appreciate that. Like Rondi said, I'm Jono. I'm with Creative Paving Solutions. This is Jeff. He's with GAF. And I think we need to I don't think, okay, cool. All right, so today what I'm going to talk to you about is I'm going to talk about solar reflective coatings. There's 3 products that I'm going to talk about. It's manufactured by GAF. They are water-based, 2-part acrylic modified epoxy. It's going to be the GAF Solar Grade DuraShield, the GAF SB120, and the GAF SB150. So the 3 things I'm going to talk about essentially are the cool streets. That's what we're doing with the City of Los Angeles. As of this week, we've passed 7.5 million square feet in the past 18 months on neighborhood streets and arterial streets. I'm going to talk about decorative asphalt, and I'm also going to talk about what we're doing with Los Angeles Unified School District. So we've applied these solar reflective coatings, the SB120, on over 60 schools to this point, and also DuraShield on the parking lots. So here are 2 diagrams. The first one on the left, it was taken in San Francisco. It just shows, as you move from the rural areas to the downtown areas, how much higher the heat starts to get. The more that you get to these condensed concrete asphalt areas, the long UV rays actually hold in the asphalt and then release at night. And our coating essentially stops that from happening. Most heat-related deaths actually happen in the evening as the long rays are coming out of the asphalt. This does not allow that. This allows the earth to essentially recharge and get ready for the next day. On the right, it shows, the numbers that you see are essentially circumstantial. If it's 100 degrees outside compared to 80 degrees outside, you're going to get different numbers. On regular asphalt and regular pavement, you're looking at a reflectivity of about 10%. On the solar reflective coating, you're looking at a reflectivity of about 40%. This is just another example of that. On the top, you can see aged asphalt in the top left with an SR of approximately 15%. In the middle is seal coat, which is traditionally used for cities to help rejuvenate and elongate asphalt. That actually darkens the asphalt, making it less reflective and making it hotter. The SR on that is about 8%. And once you get the solar reflective DuraShield, the reflectivity goes up to 34%. The 3 images on the bottom were taken in North Hollywood. The middle one is just showing the temperature of the day. It was 88 degrees and cloudy outside. On the left is a temperature reading of just regular aged asphalt that was showing at 123 degrees Fahrenheit. And on the bottom right is a temperature reading of the solar reflective DuraShield. That's at about 110 degrees Fahrenheit. So you can see there that the surface temperature is a 13-degree difference. That is a huge difference, and it significantly affects the area around it, the ambient temperature, and the people that inhabit that area. And if this were 100 degrees out and sunny, those numbers would probably be bigger. You'd see a greater difference between the 2 surfaces. The next photo, this is essentially, there are multiple products out there. The GAF product, as I mentioned, is an epoxy modified acrylic. It's not oil-based, it's water-based. When it gets hot, oil-based products, they get soft, they track, they show tire marks, and that's what you see on the left. On the left there is a solar reflective seal coat after 3 months, and on the right is a solar reflective DuraShield after 3 months. The DuraShield is also a little bit darker than competitive products. The reason being is we don't want it to be too reflective to where it's going to affect drivers or it's going to affect people when you're walking out there and squinting. It's mainly just to look great and look clean as well as combat urban heat. Over here, these are 3 images. On the left, this is a photo that was actually taken by NASA and by JPL. This is one of the neighborhoods that we did in Winnetka. When you zoom in on it, which you can see, and it's kind of circled in green, you have all this area around it that shows how hot the surface temperature is. And then when you get to the neighborhood that we did, you have this area where it's much whiter, which is showing that it's not as hot as the surrounding areas. This is just an example of how significant the coatings have been in the communities that we've been applying it in. On the right are 2 identical photos. One is a non-thermal photo and the other is a thermal photo. Per the city specifications for Los Angeles in these streets, we don't do crosswalks because they don't want to deal with the thermoplastic. You can see in the thermal photo that the areas that have gotten the coating are significantly cooler than the areas that haven't gotten the coating. And you can also see, some vehicles there that are just storing asphalt. And really, it's just an example of how the coating is not allowing the heat to stick in it, and it's allowing it to leave. Next, what I'm going to talk about is decorative asphalt. all of the decorative asphalt that I'm going to be discussing can happen in solar reflective coatings. On the left, you're going to see an image. This is what we did for the city of Los Angeles on Hollywood Boulevard. It's the All Black Lives Matter. They wanted a more permanent solution, so they came with this coating. The coating that I'm talking about, the recommended recoat is about 5 to 7 years. We have areas that get significantly longer life than that. So this project on the left, actually both projects were done with custom colors. We can match any color in a Dunn Edwards color palette, and we can make it solar reflective. It doesn't just need to be solar gray. It doesn't just need to be, it doesn't need to be black. It doesn't need to be dark. We can coat a street pink if you want it pink, or we can coat it tan and match the native surrounding around it. On the right is a project that we did with Lady Gaga for the 10-year anniversary of her Born This Way album. That's in front of the Abbey in West Hollywood. It's a historic LGBTQIA bar, and we actually got to meet Lady Gaga that day. She made us wait for 3 hours, which, knocked her down in my book a few. Here is just some more examples of decorative asphalt. On the left is referencing an article that Bloomberg actually came out with in April of 2022, showing that if you apply decorative asphalt or decorative coatings to your crosswalks, it can reduce accidents between vehicles and pedestrians or bicyclists by 50%. So not only are you helping combat the urban heat island effect, you're also helping with public safety with the crosswalks. On the right are just a bunch of different photos that we've done. On the top left is a project that we did in New Mexico. This is one of my favorite projects because we actually worked with the community on this project. There was an artist from the community. We brought people from the community. They came up with a design. We were able to replicate the design, and then we actually worked with them on the street and allowed people to get involved in the community and help put something beautiful on the ground. On the bottom left is a project that we did in Flagstaff, Arizona. It's for the pine cone drop. They do it when it goes from winter to fall, or fall to winter, sorry. And they essentially, everybody gathers in the town and drops a pine cone when the first snow comes. The two photos on the bottom right and the middle right are actually stamped asphalt. These are just some projects in the city of Phoenix. They wanted to brighten up a neighborhood, brighten up a community. For the bottom right, that's actually in an alleyway. They wanted it to give something back to the community that looked great. And then in the right, it's to commemorate the 100-year birthday of Arizona. On the top right is a project, another community-involved project that we did for Wilmington. We actually worked with the council office in Wilmington. They brought us the design. I'm still not sure what the design is, but they brought us the design, and we were able to put it on the ground exactly how they wanted it. Here are just more photos of decorative asphalt. On the left is a photo that it's a basketball court that we actually did in conjunction with Project Backboard. We worked with an artist on this. She brought the designs, and we were able to put it on the ground. The top right is a project that we did in Mesa, Arizona. This is all solar reflective coating. It's called the Fiesta District. It's meant to represent the community. They had some fun out there designs that they wanted to incorporate into their roads, and we were able to help them do that. On the bottom left, the Q is for the town of Queen Creek. They wanted to put a big Q in the middle of their main intersection, so we were able to put a big Q in the middle of their intersection. And all of this is done with solar reflective coating. You're probably going to hear me say that a ton because it's really important that people realize that we can do beautiful work, we can put messages on the ground, we can invigorate a neighborhood and a community, all while also having a sustainable mindset and helping combat the urban heat island effect using solar reflective coatings. On the right, that's a project that we did in Long Beach for a school. They wanted to do, their mascot is a polar bear. They wanted to have a polar bear walking through the crosswalks. So now it looks like a giant polar bear walking through the crosswalks. The last thing that I want to talk about are school playgrounds. As I mentioned earlier, we've done over 65 schools with Los Angeles Unified School District. I have some before and after photos to show you. One important thing about this product is that it actually bonds to the oils in the asphalt. So if you apply this product to fresh asphalt, the fresher, the better. We found that the first 4 months of asphalt's life, is the highest percentage of oil being cooked out of the asphalt from UV rays. This coating, you can essentially look at it as a sunscreen. So it bonds to the oils in the asphalt, extending the life of the asphalt by up to 30%. We have research, independent research from Princeton and Arizona State University that can back up this claim. So for these schools, if you have a school that has fresh asphalt, significantly less maintenance, a return on investment for your actual play yard, and you have this beautiful area that children can play on while also combating urban heat. So this is a school, it's called Maywood Elementary School. I mean, you can essentially see what I'm talking about here. On the left, you have this black asphalt area that's a heat-sucking environment, and with this coating, you have a beautiful playground that children can play on, and that's also helping combat the urban heat island effect. The next school, this is actually the first school that we ever did with LAUSD, so it's one of my favorite. It's Western Avenue Elementary School. This is in South Central Los Angeles. It's in a very rough neighborhood. This is probably the nicest thing that's been put into that neighborhood in a very long time. And when I went back there, I met with the principal, and she actually told me that she saw an increase in enrollment. She saw more kids out there having fun. She saw less bullying because the kids were more interested in playing. And there was a sense of community pride. Parents would walk by the school and they would say, "Oh, I want my child to go to this school. This is great. People actually care." I mean, you look on the left. I remember when I first walked on it, I felt like I was walking on a prison yard. I mean, there are tall fences. It's dark. It's hot, and we're able to give something back to the students while also giving back to the environment. This is our last slide, and this is Calabash Elementary School. We did this project in Woodland Hills, and this is one of my favorite projects as well because it actually tells a story. It's hard to see in the image, but it's supposed to be a bear run. So you start on the left and you work your way through the fish in the middle where the bear is getting his food, and then over the mountains, and then you go through the snowy forest, and then there's a hibernation zone at the top. This is essentially, this is essentially what we can do with this product. We can tell stories with it. We can apply the gray and just have the elongating of the life of the asphalt, as well as just a great smooth surface and combating the urban heat island effect. We can tell stories with it. It's really there's endless amounts of things that you can do with this coating. That's the last slide. So what I really want everybody to take away from this is that if you have a vision of something that you want to put on the ground, we can put it on the ground. If you want to do something and get community involvement to apply to crosswalks in a neighborhood, we can do that. We have these coatings work together. The DuraShield and the Street Bond 120 are all of the same, and the N150, they're all the same technology. We can do complete streets. You can have cool pavement in the roads, and then you can have bright colored crosswalks, improving public safety, helping combat the urban heat island effect, cooling communities, and extending the life of your asphalt. Most cities that I work with, their largest asset is their asphalt pavement. And to be able to get longer life out of your asphalt while also combating urban heat can create significant savings for the city where money can be used elsewhere, and also help tackle this climate change issue that we're seeing all over the place. So, Jeff, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
No, I think you hit most of the bases, but I think a couple of things. Typically when we talk about sustainability, people really, they get excited about the concept of solar reflectivity and whatnot, but when you start talking about extending the life of asphalt substrates so you're not having to replace asphalt as often, not only is that a huge cost, but it's also less recycled or less used asphalt going into landfills or having to be recycled. The learning outcomes for students, communities tend to bond a lot better when they have kind of artful neighborhoods and whatnot. So there's a lot of real positive benefits. And I know the commissioner up here spoke a little bit about solar earlier as well. Interestingly, we do a lot of work with companies that are putting solar canopies in parking lots and whatnot. And if they use a bifacial panel, our solar reflective coatings will actually increase the energy capture because we can bounce basically UV off of parking lots into the bottom of those panels. And for a limited cost, additional cost for using a bifacial panel, as opposed to just a single-sided panel, we have the ability to increase energy capture. So there's a lot of things these coatings can do, along with trees, which people have talked about, and all the other issues that I think you address on a regular basis to really enhance what's happening in communities and to help cool those down. So
I'm glad I brought Jeff with me. And one thing that I want to add too is, with this coating, you essentially eliminate the need for seal coat in the areas that you're applying it. So seal coat is essentially, as it should be applied, is, you know, every 2 to 3 years. This coating, you're getting 5 to 7 years, if not longer, out of it. That's less maintenance, less roads that you have to shut down. And seal coat is oil-based in its own right, in the makeup of the product. It's not environmentally friendly. As you saw from the photo that I showed, it actually darkens the asphalt, so it's making the urban heat even hotter. And it's essentially a sacrificial product. The second that you put seal coat down, when the UV rays start to hit it, the seal coat starts to fall apart. This eliminates the need for seal coat in the areas that you're applying it on. So, I mean, that's essentially what we're doing. We've applied it on millions of square feet for the city of Los Angeles. There's more cities that are doing pilot projects on it that are very interested in it. The biggest issue that we have with the product is that nobody knows about it. That's, you know, once people start to use it, the community feedback that we've gotten from the areas that we've put on it have been absolutely fantastic. Aside from the fact that it looks fantastic, it's cooler at night. Our office in Phoenix, Arizona, when it's 100 degrees outside, I will walk on it barefoot and there's no issues with it. Can't do that on asphalt. So that is the Street Bond product. And we'd love to answer and take any questions that anybody has.
Right, thank you so much. Are there questions from the commissioners?
Several. I was wondering why so many Arizona projects, but now that you're headquartered, I live there and I know what it's like in the summer. So what is the typical life of an asphalt road? You said extends by about 30%. Is it?
Typical life would be 30 to 40 years.
Okay.
You know, if depending on how cities maintain it, I'm sure that there are a lot of roads that are much older than 30 to 40 years, but after 30 to 40 years, you're looking at repaving your asphalt, yes.
Is the use of this coating any impediment to recycling the asphalt? Because we try to do a lot of that in LA.
I know the answer to that, but I'll let Jeff.
No, actually, it's not. And we've actually had studies where they've studied the impact on aging on asphalt by taking recycled asphalt that has our coatings on top of it. It's fully recyclable, but that's where they've also been able to determine that the aging of the asphalt that has the coating on it is usually 20 to 30% less than asphalt that doesn't have those protective coatings.
Okay. So. One other question. I know they're called asphalt roof shingles. I don't know if they actually, what the asphalt content is. Do you have a coating for rooftops or for asphalt shingles? Are you developing that?
Well,
I'm going to let him take this one.
Interestingly, GAF is the largest roofing manufacturer in North America. Now, unfortunately, from a standpoint of answering questions about roofing, I'm on the pavement coating side of things. So,
sure.
But no, we do particularly in commercial and industrial settings, a tremendous amount of cool roof. There's a tremendous amount of cool roof technology that's out there. On housing, we have just actually introduced the first solar shingle. We actually beat Elon Musk to that. So, you know, we put that feather on our cap, but it's actually a solar shingle that will nail onto your roof. A lot of times you see solar panels going onto roofs. Unfortunately, that tends to compromise your roof over time, whereas these are actual shingles, so they nail onto the roof like any other shingle would. And because they're solar, of course, you're reducing energy usage and all of those types of things. So there's a lot of technologies on the roof end of things. And really, when you talk about cool communities, I mean, that's one of the components. It's asphalt, it's trees, it's roofs. It's all of those components kind of holistically combined that are going to have the greatest impact on cooling communities.
Sure. Just one last question. The bifacial PV panels you were talking about, I've never seen those. Where are those being used?
You know, there's a handful of projects. I can get some more information for you. Off the top of my head, I can't tell you one down here, but GAF has an energy division as well, and we work with a number of organizations with all types of solar projects. And the areas, I mean, IKEA, I know, is known for using bifacial panels, and we do coat a handful of IKEA lots, and you know those places, IKEA is gigantic, right?
You can see them from the moon, I'm sure.
Yeah, so I would be happy to pull some information on that and get you guys some ideas of where some of that's happened.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
One question, cost, $1 million question. How much cost does it add to the existing paving? Is it 10% more to add this coating? Is it 50% more?
When it's circumstantial, depending on union and everything. Right. I mean, compared to seal coat, I mean, I'm not sure exactly how much the seal coat costs are. You're probably looking at, I mean, probably looking at 50 to 60% more. It really depends on the cost of seal coat, because when you're talking about the actual paving of it, I'm not sure how much it costs to pave a road. I only do the coatings of the road. I can compare it to seal coat, where if you're spending the money on seal coat anyways, it could be anywhere from 50 to 60% more. And we actually built, so this coating used to be applied with 15-gallon sprayers. When we started working with the city of Los Angeles, we went out and we built 1,500-gallon sprayers. So through that process, we were able to lower the price significantly. After our first pilot project with the city of Los Angeles, we were able to lower the price by 25%. And there's going to be another contract coming up soon, and when that comes, we're going to lower the price even more. The more that we work with this coating and that we develop the process of how we're going to apply it, we're able to bring costs down. So I want to say 50 to 60%, but I don't know the numbers of seal coat. That's the main competitor. But over the lifespan, by the time that you have seal coated 2 or 3 times, you're starting to look at the price. You're starting to look at recoating the actual solar reflective coating. So in the beginning, it's going to be more expensive, but over the course of the life of the coating, you're going to end up saving money on it.
And a couple things I would add. If you've paid any attention to like coal tar emulsion, which is usually what has been used to protect asphalt substrates over time, in a number of states that has been completely outlawed. So that's you're no longer able to use that in a number of states. It's been outlawed in California for a while. So I mean, that doesn't get used here, but we're starting to see more and more and more regulation that is preventing the use of any kind of asphalt emulsion product on roadways, right? We're always gonna have to have asphalt, but the coatings that are being used are being regulated out if they aren't environmentally friendly. So, while that doesn't necessarily solve the cost problem today, it's an issue at hand that people are beginning to become well aware of. And like John kind of commented, if you look at a 20-year life cycle on a roadway or a parking lot or whatever, one of the major steps that happens at 10 or 12 or 15 years is you'll typically go and you'll mill and regrind 2 or 3 inches of asphalt off. If you can put an epoxy modified acrylic coating on top of that asphalt, we basically can eliminate that step as long as that road is maintained properly over that 20-year period of time. That's a really substantial cost to go in and do that on a roadway. So a life cycle cost analysis, it really is really competitive. But if it's a dollar for dollar upfront cost, it's definitely more expensive to put our coatings.
Can I just, I have my own set of questions, but I just want to piggyback on Haik's question. So can you scroll back to the slide that you had? You had one of Wilmington, yeah, a forward one. So, I mean, none of us on this commission are in public works. We don't have an understanding of the scale of the cost of things. So can you just give us an example, like how much was the Wilmington intersection on the top right? And then maybe give us one example of one of the, like the school in South LA. Because yeah, ultimately, like we have jurisdiction over the roadways. The school district has their own process for what happens on school properties. But it would be helpful to understand like what is the cost of an intersection treatment like this, and then just for our own awareness, what's the cost of that South LA project on campus?
Yeah, so the numbers that I'm going to give you are going to be very rough because I don't have them off the
it
top
can
of
be
my head.
ranging. Yeah.
So the top right, these were custom designed. This was custom colors. You're probably looking at, depending on the square footage of it, and I might even pull my phone out and pull my calculator out if that's okay with you. You're probably looking at you could be anywhere from 17,000 to 25,000, depending on the square footage. I mean, there were some areas here that had concrete on it. There's a different process for that, which costs more to do it. You have to grind and apply a primer to it. But you can be anywhere from 15 to 25,000. Now, if you're just doing one color, it can be significantly cheaper for that, just to brighten up the crosswalk. Let's go to a school. So a school, you're looking at, for the entire playground, you're probably looking at 180,000. Now, there's ways where with the fawn color, which is that tannish color, you can actually use the solar reflective gray, and that will significantly reduce the price of it. This same exact school size, the size that I just calculated on my phone, I'm doing a school for Los Angeles Unified, where I'm going to be able to charge them $93,000 for it. So there are ways around it, and we're also, the sprayers that we built for the streets of LA, we are figuring out how to use them on school playgrounds. We actually have a pilot project coming up to use it on school playgrounds. And I'm sure the manufacturer is working on new sprayers to help us apply this much quicker. I'm not positive, but it would make sense that that's on the way.
And if I could add a couple things, if you go back to those
Absolutely.
intersection slides. So one of the conversations as a manufacturer rep that I have with municipalities regularly is we talk about traffic calming. And the slide to the very left talks about reducing deaths and increasing safety. A lot of times when you get into traffic calming, there's a couple ways to go. One, we can use color, right, which will basically attract people's eyes and it will get their attention. Secondly, you can do kind of hard infrastructure, right, where you're putting in barricades and things like that. So when you look at these kinds of options from a standpoint of intersections and whatnot, to create whatever visually you're trying to create, if you can do it with color, ultimately it's likely to be less expensive if it's part of a traffic calming conversation than it is if you're actually using, hard components, concrete and asphalt, and redoing kind of configuration. So there is, again, there's some cost considerations to be given in terms of what the usage of this stuff is. If it's pure art, it's going to cost you. But if it's traffic calming and whatnot, I think there's some things that may offset those overall costs.
And there are ways that we can incorporate some sort of art, some sort of design, letters, much simpler than what we're looking at up there. I mean, those are beautiful crosswalks. We really enjoy doing it. But there are ways that we can incorporate things that don't add a lot of money to it, but still get you what you're trying to get out of it.
And to piggyback just off the school conversation, I'm starting to talk to more and more municipalities about parks, right? We're actually in the process of finalizing the development of a sport court coding, right? It's actually our SB 120 or 150 product, but with some preparation to those courts. So it'll make tennis courts and basketball courts and pickleball courts solar reflective as well, which most of the sports courts providers out there don't offer that. They don't have it. Their colors are great and their courts are great, but they're not solar reflective. So if we can go into parks and do that kind of work as well. So you may have some jurisdiction or at least some conversation on parks as opposed to schools. So something to consider.
And to piggyback off that too, I don't think I mentioned this product also has silica sand in it, so it's ADA compliant, non-slip, wet or dry. So in Phoenix, Arizona, where we have a very large horse riding population, we will actually do crossings just for horses in this coating to just reduce slippage and I almost said enjoy, and to increase the friction so they can enjoy the ride.
Well, one of the things I first noticed about it is that it's low VOC, and so even meeting the SCA QMD standards, which of course are the strictest in the country, and since it's going into schools a lot, certainly you want things that are not emitting all kinds of things, and for the children to breathe, and also with the childhood obesity epidemic, just anything that entices kids to go out and move around a little bit more, I think is a really good thing. And Glendale is one of the least safe cities of its size for pedestrians. There's been a lot of unfortunate fatalities and injuries here in the city, and to the point that they even had a task force working on that and so on, and they've gotten grants and things because it's such a problem here. So anything that helps calm intersections, I think is good. So I know my neighborhood association has been working several months with Public Works to spruce up Adams Square. There's kind of an odd intersection there that's offset, and they want to add more safe crossings and so on for pedestrians and so on too, but that might be a good solution for that. But looking at coatings was part of that equation. It's like, how do we do it? And I was suggesting that they also take the color up onto the vertical surfaces, like, you could have concrete planters or concrete waste receptacles or something that could also integrate the design too, so you can see it from more of a distance too. So like a lot of these are drone shots, but it's, it's very different when you're in the space, and being able to see it around you and so on, so.
Because a lot of these colors, or not a lot of these, because these colors are very UV stable over time, when you have maintenance going on streets and whatnot, and they're coming in and they're actually, doing underground utility work where they're having to remove asphalt and whatnot, our coatings can be, patched in essence, right? So, we're not having to necessarily redo an entire area. We can recoat the area that was impacted by construction. And typically the colors will blend really nicely even over time because of the UV stability of the color, kind of the color fastness of these coatings. So a lot of benefits from that standpoint as well.
Yeah, and that's, I've seen it all over California where, people will have brick pavers or stamped concrete. Right. When you have to cut into that, it's extremely expensive to remove it. It's extremely expensive to repair it. At a certain point, when those pavers settle, it becomes a tripping hazard. The city of Scottsdale used to use brick pavers and stamped asphalt. A woman was walking, her heel got stuck in a loose paver, she broke her ankle, she sued the city, and they only do stamped asphalt now. That's a very big advantage to it. And it's, like what Jeff said, when you come back and you cut it out, you put the coating over it, and it looks brand new, you don't even notice it. I don't know if anybody's seen it, but when you drive around California, you'll see these big areas with brick pavers and then just a bunch of asphalt, like a black spot of asphalt just in the middle of it, and it looks horrible. That doesn't have to happen anymore.
Right.
Yeah, I have a question about the colors. So when it, I know you said that it bonds with the asphalt, but when it rains, do the colors ever like wash off and then maybe enter like the waterways when it rains, or is it 100%?
No, it's 100. When it's on, once it cures, and it cures very quickly, we would recommend a few hours before people walk on it, but once it really dries, you can walk on it, which can be upwards of 20 minutes, depending on how hot it is. The water is not going to affect it at all. Okay. The only way that you're going to pull this coating off is if you're pulling off asphalt with it.
Okay, got it. Thank you. And then I had another question. Do you have like specific communities that you're trying to target? Because I know that historically redline communities that have the highest, that are most likely to succumb to the heat risk would probably benefit from this a lot. And I was just wondering if you have anything to maybe target a specific community with these projects?
We're targeting more urban communities and underserved communities. That's where you really see the effects of the heat island effect. There's not a lot of trees, there's a lot of cars, there's a lot of asphalt, there's a lot of concrete. The city of LA has been very diligent on picking out specific communities so that we can help cool down those communities. But I'm targeting all communities. This environmental issue that we're dealing with is not picky. It's everybody's in line with it. So it's important to target the communities that are most affected by it. But the answer to your question is I'm targeting everybody.
Well, my kids both live in Montana, go to school up there, and just so you know, I actually was born and raised in Glendale, so I live in Northern California now, but 3921 Karen Lynn Drive, I still remember my address, and I moved in '74. But when I was in Montana, I visited a couple of municipalities up there, and Montana's known for just being this beautiful, comfortable area, and I had Public Works and Parks and Rec directors saying we've got to figure out a way to cool our parks and do all these things. So we're seeing this in places where traditionally you wouldn't think it would be an issue, but it's a concern in places like Missoula, Montana, and we're seeing it elsewhere in the country as well. So.
And sorry.
Yeah. Oh no, thank you. I just wanted to say thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Well, and take away what it does for the urban heat island effect, take away what it does for public safety. just in general, applying this coating to asphalt is extending the life of your asphalt. I mean, it's increasing the ROI of your investment of asphalt. I mean, just that alone is a significant savings to the city. But now when you throw in, which to me is the most important part, the environmental aspect of it, the public safety aspect of it, you know, what it does for children on playgrounds as far as, you know, engaging in sports, and, you know, it really, there are so many positives that we've seen coming from this coating. I mean, my dad started our company 25 years out of our garage, so I've been around this. I probably have this coating in my blood in an unhealthy way. And, you know, this is what I'm passionate about. And the more that we work with these communities and we're seeing what it's doing for certain communities that really don't get a lot from anywhere else, it creates a huge impact. And that's what this is all about. You know, and community engagement and community involvement is just, it's my favorite projects are when we can have a community come in, help us out, be a part of it, and then at the end they're like, wow, this is amazing what you guys have done here.
Well, this is how I found out about the project. I was reading an article in Fast Company about what GAF was doing in Pacoima, putting 1 million square feet of this, and were you involved in that at all?
I was. I'm actually in the Good Morning America piece on TV, schlepping big buckets of this stuff and actually applying it. Yeah, and matter of fact, most of our team from GAF was on site actually doing the work. And one of the interesting things about that, we're actually tracking this application. So there was roughly 1 million feet of product put down. We did what, one school, or was there two schools?
One school and a park.
One school and one park. In this as well, and now we've actually got basically a scientist monitoring this location. I believe it's on a weekly basis, if not on a monthly basis. We're basically at the end of the year, we're going to be able to really be able to provide some kind of hard data to speak to how not only we know how we impact surface temperatures, and we have a general idea how we impact ambient temperatures, but we're going to have hard data at the end of a year to really speak to that. And, you know, one of the hottest communities in Southern California. So we're all excited to see what the outcomes are for that.
And that community event, once the project was done, a few weeks later, everybody came back out and the councilwoman was there, and the people from the community would just walk up to you and just say, thank you. Yeah. I mean, it was a huge deal what we did there. And if I stayed in that truck hauling buckets for 2 more minutes, I would have been on Good Morning America too.
Exactly.
And so I watched that piece. I looked at my wife, I said, I missed it. I missed my 2 seconds of fame.
Hopefully we're helping make up for that today.
Hopefully, if she's watching, hi Lizzie.
You got Durashield in your blood, so you're going to live a little longer.
Well, I will, because I'm not going to get as hot as everybody else, you know?
That's funny. So did anyone have any more questions?
Yeah, I think you already answered it, but it was mainly around safety. So it sounds like you said there's about 30% reduction in speed accident or driving accidents on these roads. But regarding you said it's a silica compound that you put in there. So does that actually, is it maintain the same traction surface, or is it actually decrease it still somewhat? I guess I'm mainly asking, is there a safety issue around the traction?
Yeah, I mean, it creates basically a slip and skid resistant surface. So particularly on roadways that you typically see seal coats go down on, any of those kinds of roadways, especially in Southern California where we don't get rain very often, right? And when we do get rain events, you see a lot of accidents on roadways, right? That's because of all the oil buildup, all those kinds of things now basically turn the roadways into ice rinks, right? The fact that we have aggregate in our coatings basically provides that slip and skid resistance regardless of the situation. So whether it's wet or dry, that stuff is in there, and it works, you know, regardless. So.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, great presentation.
Thank you. And you could think of a less intense sandpaper, essentially. I mean, it's definitely skid resistant, and it was 50% reduction and 50% reduction. Well, because that's a big deal, 50% reduction in accidents between vehicles and pedestrians and vehicles and bicyclists. That's a huge deal. You know, I mean, we're talking with a lot of universities that have kids walking everywhere. They're very interested in it. It's a big deal. It's very exciting stuff.
Great. Right, any more questions? Or,
Yeah, I'll be brief. So during the presentation, I realized I worked with you guys on a project in Venice. I work for the city of LA, and we did a BLM as well.
Yes.
In Venice. So I remember that very clearly. So as a transportation planner, I'm mostly curious about this in the crosswalk realm because of the safety factor. I think for our decision makers and for us, frankly, probably the issue would have to be around maintenance. And so I see the pictures you're sharing. They're installations that have just happened, but of course, you know, the public works folks are asking the tough questions of what does this look like 1 year from now, 2, 3, 5 years from now? And I think if you're able to visually demonstrate that for us, by pointing to examples and just visually showing us what this product looks like in 5 years, it'll help allay concerns from our staff that are having to deal with the maintenance of these kinds of atypical treatments. So I'm all on board because of the safety component, but I know there's a significant cost associated with the upfront cost and maintenance. So I want to put that out there. And then the city is, as was mentioned, we are pursuing creative crosswalks now as part of our arts program and also safety improvements. We have a creative crosswalk right here at Broadway and Glendale at this very intersection. It doesn't look too great after having it in the ground for maybe a year or so, I'd say. So that's at the forefront of our minds as well, is just the maintenance piece and making sure that we can afford it.
I'm smiling because if I didn't get stuck in traffic, I would have had some pictures like that on there. I spoke with Commissioner Warner earlier today, and it was something that she brought up, and I was like, oh, I missed something in my presentation. And if I wasn't stuck in traffic, I would have had some Google images to show you some stuff. So we will put something together and I'll share it so that it can be passed around.
Send it to, staff can share with us. It'd be great to have that information.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Make sure you're keeping up with what the city's doing, because we are putting out RFPs for creative crosswalks and all this stuff that you're able to do with your product.
If you'll indulge me, 2 more quick questions. Why are accidents reduced? Is it because people slow to look at the artwork, or they're just paying more attention as they go through the intersection?
So, you want to take this one? So, I mean, I can send the Bloomberg article because they get into it more there.
Okay.
But essentially, it's brighter than the black asphalt, so it's going to contrast. It's going to show more.
Okay.
People say, "Oh, what is that?" You know, you kind of slow down. It's like when there's it's funny that I'm using this example here, but when there's a car accident, all of a sudden everybody slows down because they want to see the car accident.
Sure.
It's similar to that, essentially. I mean,
well, and I think it not only for drivers but for pedestrians as well, right? They're going to be they're visually engaged more so than if they're just walking on a gray sidewalk with a phone in front of their face. So, you know, some of it's anecdotal evidence, but I think in reality, you know, you see consistency in that across studies.
Sure. My second question is, can a city like Glendale purchase a product and apply itself, or do you have to apply?
I'm going to say no. He's probably going to say yes.
No, for him.
Okay, listen, no, we're all on the same mission here. So.
Yeah, no, we have organizations, municipalities who do self-apply. I will say if it's a decorative component, the last thing you want to do is try and do it yourself, right? That's where you need to bring people like creative who have the experience and background to do that. If you're just going to put solar gray down in a parking lot, you know, you can train city staff to do that kind of work, and we've seen it happen. But yeah, I think, you know, as the decorative components are involved, it takes a certain level of skill to do that kind of work and experience. But no, by all means, it's possible, and we as an organization will come and train city staff on how to do that stuff as necessary. But we're gonna be really honest too in terms of the types of projects where we think it's appropriate and not appropriate to do self-installation.
That makes sense.
I'm not bringing him to these meetings anymore. No. Listen, we all have the same goal here. I will add, and obviously I'm biased, but when you see somebody that's unexperienced doing this work, because of the color of it, people focus on it when they see it, and the imperfections show significantly. And
The next time we do a community event where the GAF people like myself are there installing, come watch, and I will guarantee you will want nothing to do with the installation of it.
we ended up coming in the,
They had to come in and fix everything we did, just because, you know, it's hard to work with if you're not used to doing it. Very hard to work.
but yes, cities can install it on their own.
And I know LA Unified's been using it for at least 5 years now, so, and I'm, you know, pretty sure they would have ditched it if it wasn't
We've
performing, but you
got
know.
product down in Route 66. As a matter of fact, my colleague and I were meeting with Caltrans for some projects out in the San Bernardino area, one of which is Route 66. And there's actually some stamped asphalt on Route 66 that's over 10 years old. Now, that's heavily trafficked. The coatings have worn off a little bit, but the stamped asphalt is fine. So if they want to go back in and put another coat of street bond on top of it, it will look like brand new stamped asphalt. So, you know, and that's really an inexpensive fix when at that point, 10 years later, all you're having to do is go basically spray another 5 or 10 gallons of coating on a crosswalk. And basically it'll reinvigorate it and bring it back to life for another 10 years. So
Yeah, I mean, and just to piggyback off that, we have projects in Scottsdale, Arizona, in Old Town Scottsdale. It gets 50,000 cars a day. In the summer, the temperature gets up to 120 degrees. In the winter, can get down to the high 30s, even low 30s if it gets really cold. And we've had product on the ground, stamped asphalt, for 12 years. We've done zero maintenance on it. It needs a recoat at this point, but similar to what Jeff said, if we put a recoat on it, which actually we're doing on the 24th of October, they're getting ready for the Super Bowl, but if we put a recoat on it, it looks absolutely brand new. And I do have some before and afters that I can share with you, so that you can see what it looks like when this coating gets recoated. Oh, yeah.
Great.
And just to speak to, LAUSD does do some self-installation. They do it for maintenance purposes. They tried to do schools on their own. They did about one, maybe 2 schools, and then said, we can't do this. But for smaller schools where they have to do, you know, asphalt work or something, they do self-installation.
And I would say nationally, 2% of our product's done self-installed, right? 98% of it's done by certified applicators. You know, they've got the equipment, they've got the experience. Ultimately, you know, I'm not convinced it necessarily saves a ton of money to self-install, quite honestly.
Great. Well, thank you. Yes?
And I had a quick question. I know you guys briefly touched on the heat island effect, or rather how it reduces it. I think there was like a JPL image, a thermal image somewhere. But I was going to ask, on average, what's the percentage of reduction of the heat island effect?
I think that, so this Pacoima project, we're really getting that data. I mean, do you have any numbers that you can speak to right now?
We don't have any preliminary numbers. I mean, you know, like Jono said, I mean, pretty much in any application, we're going to see anywhere from 8 to 15 degree reduction in surface temperature with our solar gray. So, you know, we know that that's happening. But I think really the biggest impact, like he spoke to, is if we're not heating that asphalt up during the daytime, it's allowing cities to cool at night. Because really the deaths associated with heat island, yeah, on 120 degree days, people are going to die being, you know, exposed during the day, but people are going to die at night because their body does not get to cool down, right? Nor does the city, right? I mean, air conditioners are going to run longer and all of those kinds of things. So we're looking for hard data to come out of what we're doing in Pacoima. But anecdotally, there's a lot of data that shows that this is, you know, and I will also say from a heat island mitigation standpoint, cool pavement's not the silver bullet, right? You need to look at trees, you need to look at cool roofs, right? It's got to be a holistic approach for this to really work. We're just one component that happens to be, in a lot of cases, the hottest component, but everything else has to be being done in concert with that for it to have the greatest impact.
This is why I love working with GA. Well, I'm an applicator. I've looked at other cool coating products. None of them stand to the GAF product, but when you talk to other cool, it's all about, no, we need cool coating, we need cool coating. It's not but, it's and. It's trees, it's shade. I mean, there's a mission that needs to be done here so that we can combat the urban, I'm getting chills, so that we can combat the urban heat island effect and help cool this planet. And he got me excited. I love when people talk like that, because we all need to work together to help combat this problem that we have.
All right, wonderful, thank you.
Thank you. I actually heard from my friend who does specifications for LAUSD. They said they got good feedback from the teachers that when the kids come back from playing, it takes them less time to cool down, because they weren't quite as overheated and so on. So they were, able to get started on their lesson plans a little faster.
Well, there's actual studies that show the impact on learning outcomes by having decorative players and cooler players. I mean, there's actual data to support that in regards to kids and learning outcomes. So,
great. Well, thank you so much. I think we all learned quite a bit about this material, so we appreciate what
We
you're
got as much time as
you're
the
doing.
comments got. This was good.
well, we appreciate the opportunity to share this with you. I mean, we're excited about the product, and we see a lot of really great things happening nationally from a GAF standpoint. And Creative is on the forefront of what's going on in California and Arizona. So.
Great.
Awesome.
Thank you so
much.
much.
We're gonna hang out for another 10 or 15 minutes in case anybody calls in with questions. And then I have a 9.5-month pregnant wife at home, so I'm going to see me sleuth out here as soon as I can so I can get home.
I actually got to catch a flight, so I may leave him for the last 15 minutes, but thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it.
Yeah, really appreciate the opportunity.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, do we happen to have any callers on this item?
No callers at the moment.
Okay.
Do you want to close public comments for this item?
Yes, we'll go ahead and do that. I think if someone was going to call, they would have called by now, so.
Okay, so public comments for item 5A are closed. Next item is 5B, drive-through bans.
Chairperson Warner and Commissioners, and we know that the Commission wanted a little bit of feedback about what happened at the Council meeting on September 27th, so we're just going to provide you that feedback now. At that meeting on the 27th, Council voted on having a 4-day interim urgency ordinance to not to have existing drive-through and waiting lines or drive-throughs within the city, and that included any projects that were in the pipeline. Staff have been asked to develop a report and conduct a study of the impacts created by new drive-through lanes, and there will be a public hearing with City Council November 1st for Council to consider extending the ordinance for additional 10 months and 15 days. If Council do decide to extend this ordinance for that period of time, that adoption will occur on November 8th, with the effective date to commence upon the 45-day expiration of the current ordinance that is in place right now. We took a brief gander what other cities have done regarding drive-through bans, and we found these 6 cities that have drive-through bans. And the focus of the bans are on the construction of new drive-through windows. Also, typically existing drive-through windows are exempt from bans that are put in place. And much like we've done with the downtown specific plan, the bans focus on reducing center emissions, improving pedestrian safety and walkability, and the health benefits are to be determined of impacting these bans due to reduced pollution potentially and reduce other associated with pollution from vehicles idling in line as they wait for whatever it is they're waiting for. So November 1st will be the next action taken by City Council on this subject. So that is a brief preview or brief feedback of what happened at the meeting on the 27th. Are there any questions?
Do you want me to go first?
I know this is your, you're the champion of this cause.
So I was very excited to hear about council taking action on this item. I've spoken to some of the planners since the item was voted on. I think, I guess for the purpose of this commission, since this will be going back to council before our next meeting, to maybe use this opportunity to ask staff to incorporate some of the thoughts that we have. That would be part of the staff report that goes to council. So one of the things that I'm interested in, because as I understand how the conversation went with council, was that there would be some version of a drive-through ban that perhaps may not be a total uniform ban. And for me, the most important thing will be how staff develops this report and ultimately provides a recommendation. And for me, I'd like to know where the existing drive-throughs are. I know part of the reason why this is pursued is because in large parts of South Glendale, we're disproportionately affected by drive-throughs currently. And I know a lot of the eligible locations for drive-throughs would be in South Glendale should future ones arise. And I know part of why this whole conversation was started was because of a particular drive-through that was proposed in South Glendale, literally on the other side of the border of the downtown specific plan where they would otherwise not be allowed. So that's what I would like to look at. I know I won't come to this commission, but I'm hoping that I would read that in the staff report to visually see where all of the existing drive-throughs are, and then potentially see where drive-throughs are eligible on a land use map for the city of Glendale. Just to further illustrate to our decision makers and to the public where we would see the greatest benefit if this ordinance or a version of this ordinance would be adopted. Those are my immediate thoughts.
Okay. Anyone else?
Oh, and I know I don't know how this could be or would be incorporated into council's decision in November, but I do remember as part of our request that we include gas stations as part of a restriction. I know council went full speed ahead with the drive-through piece, but I do hope that whether it's part of the staff report or part of some separate initiative that also be looked at.
Well, I have to confess, I'm a frequent user of drive-throughs, so full disclosure, no. But, for me, I used to work very late. When I wasn't working from home, I worked often till 9 or 10 o'clock at night. Most restaurants are closed by then or not seating new people, and, I'm starving, and it was just, I felt safe being able to stay in my car, not getting out at 10 o'clock at night, and I would go by, just pick up something from Taco Bell or whatever is easy, that sort of thing. And so, if I had to get out of my car, I probably would have just not had dinner, because it's late, I'm by myself. And I also think about people, little children, and they've fallen asleep on the trip, and they wake everybody up to go inside. And, so there's, and with the pandemic, sometimes takeout, the drive-through was the only option for some of these restaurants. And so, I'm trying to see the other side of it too, and how it does provide a benefit for people who, and the food itself is usually inexpensive compared to sitting down in a restaurant, and so it's, it starts to get into an equity issue, I think, too, with people being able to pick up a cheap meal after they get off from their late shift that wouldn't otherwise be available, already made food, to be able to eat or take home to their family. So it's, definitely something that, has a lot of pieces to it. I certainly wouldn't want to live next door to one, but it would be good to know what is, is it backing up into neighborhoods or something. I personally haven't observed that anywhere, but they seem to be in fairly commercial areas, but certainly they could be looking at the zoning closely and making sure that, they're, the speaker box thing isn't located, Actually, now that I think about it, there is an apartment building next to the Taco Bell. Yeah, wouldn't want to live there, so that's, okay, well, never mind. I just answered my own question, but I was certainly having that separation between residential and drive-throughs is definitely worth looking at.
And to just add on to your comments, I also have used drive-thrus, I'm not gonna lie, and they are, really easy. You just drive and you get your food and that's it. But I think, in my opinion, I think we already have enough in Glendale to suffice for like demand and, just adding more. I mean, like you said, I wouldn't want to drive through near my apartment, like where I live. So yeah, definitely hopefully this passes or has passed, but will progress into a longer stage, and we won't see new drive-thrus for a while in Glendale, especially South Glendale, because I have noticed, especially on Colorado Boulevard, it's like just rows of drive-thrus. I'm like, oh no, like the traffic must be so bad here. It's like, yeah, drive-thrus are a no-go.
Yes, I'll add, I am a frequent bicyclist, and I do often encounter lanes that are spilling over into the road, and for me, that's often a major safety issue because the drivers don't seem to be paying attention to who else is on the road. They're just very determined to get into the line. And so it requires a lot of weaving. They'll often even just park in where the bike lane would be if we had more bike lanes. And so I think there are some things that I'm hoping the city planning office will be looking at closely with regards to safety, especially. So, and then, of course, when it comes to bicyclists. So that's all.
The only other thing I'll add is, as Mike had mentioned, this is just more, it's less about this existential question of should drive-thrus exist. It's more about how many do we have and is that enough? So we're not going, I don't think there's an appetite or anybody has suggested that we get rid of existing drive-thrus. It's more about, do we want or need more of them as a land use policy in our city? And especially in South Glendale, where the lot sizes in general are a lot smaller on the commercial corridors, a lot of them are adjacent to residential. And I know we're striving for all electric, and we're on the cusp of addressing that in coming years. Many cars, vast majority, are still gasoline cars. They still emit, and they do create not only congestion problems, but emission problems in our most vulnerable communities. I think South Glendale is considered by the state standard as a disadvantaged community, which hosts many negative impacts that the community has to brunt. So I will say that just generally for why I've been pursuing this personally, because I do think it's an equity issue, and as a local South Glendale resident, that bears the brunt of a lot of the congestion that the city produces. The last thing that I'll mention for staff is that I do remember during part of council discussion, there was specific interest on drive-thrus for pharmacies. That would be another thing that I would like to see on a map, is where the existing drive-through pharmacies are, again, to illustrate whether or not we should have a special exemption for future pharmacies. And I know pharmacies specifically don't generate the kind of traffic that, a Starbucks would or a McDonald's would. And so I think it'll help us understand, like, if there's only one in the city, for example, then yes, maybe that's not something that we want to restrict. But if we have one in every neighborhood and there's so few cars in those queue lanes, maybe we can make a justification or better understand whether or not that should be part of the restriction moving forward. So I'm hoping we can visually show folks where they are, and I don't know, to what degree staff can demonstrate demand, but I'm sure decision makers will be curious about that.
Question. The drive-through ban won't cover biking through. Would the commissioners like to see more bike through? I actually think of a coffee shop in Frogtown, right off the trail that is a bike through coffee shop. I think if we want to encourage residents to bike, maybe incentivizing bike throughs instead of drive-throughs.
There's actually the companies will make their own policy decisions.
Yeah.
In fact, many of them don't allow you to ride up to the drive-through queue on a bicycle. It's like a liability issue or something. So I think that's on the property owner to determine whether or not they allow it. But it would be nice.
I wonder if the ban, if it does go through, should it specify that ride-throughs are exempt? Because if you don't specify it, sometimes people think no, it's not allowed. It's an idea.
I think what might be more helpful for bicyclists, if I may, would be at the very least bike racks for locking up your bike, because a lot of these businesses, there's no infrastructure around for you to lock up your bike securely. And this is not a community that I know of where you're usually willing or usually able to just bring your bike inside. Some communities are, businesses are welcome of that. But anyways, at least having bike lock infrastructure would be great. Bike rack infrastructure.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And the employees, some of them may, choose the bicycle to work if there were accommodations. So I'm glad the ban doesn't mean like getting rid of like existing ones. So it makes sense to have like a certain number, like you can have whatever it is, 20 in the city, and we just don't issue more permits after that or something, sort of like they used to do for bars. At least I assume they don't have a limit anymore. We're just looking at Rand Boulevard lately, but it seems like there's a bar on every block or two. But
So Taco Bell is staying.
So yeah, don't mess with my Taco Bell though. I'm gonna get free burritos for life if I keep this up. But anyway,
I hope no one ever takes a picture of any of us at a drive-through. I know.
I know. I once wrote an essay about the evils of drive-throughs, and I've had to kind of eat my words a little bit. Like, so I was talking on the phone to someone that knew about that essay, and they're like, "Are you in a drive-through?" It's like busted. But anyway, okay. Okay, so I guess looks like we're ready for the next agenda item.
Next agenda item is 5C, Sustainability Commission Work Plans.
So good evening again, Commissioner Werner and Commissioners. So Elizabeth has been working diligently on putting together, beginning to put together a work plan session for a couple of meetings times. And she's just going to review some of the work that she's done and offer some piece of advice or guidance for going forward.
Thank you.
So the commission, at the last commission meeting, we brought examples of Sustainability Commission work plans. So the commission has been sent examples from Eugene, Bloomington, Minnesota, Pasadena, Encinitas, Menlo Park, Mountain View, Red Wing, and Forest Grove. A combination of like cities in California and outwards. Looking at all those work plans, typically they include a mission statement, something that for the commission. It includes priorities, themes, or focus areas, general kind of groupings. It includes goals and also includes how it aligns with a CAP, council priorities, or city strategy, given that the city of Glendale will be putting together our climate action and adaptation plan in the next year or so. The Sustainability Commission could align the work plans along maybe council priorities or other city strategies in the meantime. Also, each work plan tends to have like 5 to 7 priorities or focus areas. It doesn't try to extend there's some that go longer, but most have around 5 to 7 priorities because these are typically annual work plans. They also identify projects that work and align with each focus area. So they might have a focus area of like water conservation, and put a project that they want to focus on and work on the next year that align with that theme. Some of the other interesting, I thought were good practices from the work plans is that they will identify a commissioner to lead each focus area. So they might identify one or two or perhaps a certain department, but kind of having someone there to identify to take the lead on that and to ensure that the commission stays on track and also works towards those goals and projects. And they also tend to prioritize focus areas. So of those priorities that they have, they tend to put them order from 1 to et cetera, and they usually will have like a cutoff point for like if time, this will be additional things to focus on within the capacity. So if you want to know like the process, the City of Menlo Park included like the process of developing a work plan. So they look at reviewing the purpose of the commission as defined by the Menlo City Council policy. So this would be in our case, the Sustainability Commission ordinance, the ordinance that established the Sustainability Commission. You can look and review that. They develop a mission statement and reflects that aligns with that ordinance and the purpose of the commission. They discuss and outline any priorities established by City Council that the commission can work about. And then there's like a brainstorming, which is identifying projects, areas of interest, etc. And then the commission then prioritizes those areas and then submits the work plan to City Council. Then it's approved, and then the commission reports on the plans after the year. So if you want to refresh your memory on the purpose of the Sustainability Commission from the ordinance, it is ordinance number 5954, Section 2.85.010, Sustainability Commission Establishment and Purpose. The Sustainability Commission is established in and for the city to make advisory recommendations to the City Council on the Greener Glendale Plan, climate action plans on issues relating to the environment, such as GHGs, air quality, water quality, enhanced biodiversity ecosystems, programs to increase education and awareness of economic, societal, and economic sustainability issues, and encourage input from all sectors of the community. So that's to help refresh you as you think about what you want your mission statement to be. This is probably a good jumping board for creating that. Then in terms of the powers and duties, when thinking about what are the kind of themes and what areas you want to prioritize, in that ordinance in section 2.85.100, the duties include advise on creation of CAPs and sustainability plans and the such, advise on low emission development strategies, nature-based development strategies, circular development initiatives, development patterns, look to seek inclusive participation of residents, businesses, and organizations, supporting education outreach, and then submitting an annual work plan to City Council, and consider environmental matters with city-wide impact. So the role of the commission is to look at projects and works that will impact things citywide rather than a specific project that was focused on like a specific area. So from the surveys, which we could provide in the meeting, running up to the meeting that discusses the work plan, these are some of the initial ideas that you provided. These are kind of like the overarching themes. There's a lot more specific projects we can get into later, but the main themes were like around community outreach from what was submitted, looking at renewable energy infrastructure, environmental conservation, increased green spaces, and delivery of climate solutions. So yes, that has been so far what we've collected from the commission to help you think about as you, in preparation for, I believe, December meeting in which to develop the work plan. That's it.
Great, thank you. So, yeah, David and I had exchanged emails, and I just thought it would be helpful to see a few more examples, because we'd had those ones from like Bloomington and so on, and just, trying to get more inspiration from what other cities are doing, so we're not reinventing the wheel. So does anyone have any thoughts about what they just heard?
I just had a question. So is this the first work plan that's been done? Okay, so there is not an existing work plan that we're operating off of. All right. That's all. And actually the other thing is, this would be for the next calendar year? So it's a 1-year calendar year? So 2023? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
This fiscal year? Oh, I'm sorry, on a fiscal year basis would this go into effect like July? Is the goal to have a work plan done by May or June?
I think the commission could decide that
Whatever,
once you start putting the work plan together, what your time frame is, whether it's
Right.
start at the election or whatever.
Okay, great, thank you. And I know they were mentioning a lot about advising on the plans. Does that mean, we'll have like some kind of outline and then we advise on that? Or are we like creating the ideas ourselves from scratch or from inspiration from other ones?
What plans, what do you mean by advising on plans? Do you mean your work plan or like any creation of any?
Or like the climate action plan, because it had said like, advise on climate action plan. So it makes it sound like someone's handing us a action plan and we go, oh, that's, can you change this word to this or add this other sentence or something like that? Or are we taking the ideas from the survey and then framing that into a climate action plan?
So, Chairperson Myrna, thank you for that question. So, no, for the work plan, that wouldn't be advising. You'd be deciding what you want to do as a commission, and you'd be putting that into the work plan. The advisory comment is just the commission's not a regulating making body, it's just an advisory body. So when projects do come in front of the commission, for example, when we do get the consultant standing in front of the commission talking about the climate action and adaptation plan, at that point you'd be able to advise us about things that we may have missed and you think need to be included in the plan. But the actual developing of the work plan, no, you'll be integral to what you want to work on, what are the priority areas for the commission, and what you want to accomplish over the next 12 months. I hope that clarifies.
Okay. Was there a theme, like, I know you surveyed all of us independently, and was there something that, like, everybody mentioned was a priority, or?
I don't remember, but I believe the main one was like getting the commission involved within the city and within the community was like a main theme from the results.
Like maybe education and outreach, in other words? Yeah, that's kind of a priority of mine as well, so cool. Okay.
If I could suggest maybe one other question, maybe ask us each to list what are our top 3 priorities, what would we like to work in most, then maybe these will just fall out automatically where we have people in a whole bunch of different areas anyway. It might just facilitate the process, but I do agree. I mean, we are advisory, so I think a big thing is basically assist the council in getting the word out on what's being considered, because just a lot of what the city does is still unfortunately invisible to residents. So I agree that's probably a top priority is outreach, education, get involved in the community. But I thought it couldn't hurt to know what everybody's top interests are also. Thanks.
And it looked like a lot of these other plans have sort of a champion for each one, so maybe if you all could respond, like thinking like which items of those would you be willing to champion if called upon to do so, just so we're, matching people up to the areas that they're the most passionate about, because I think most of us have some priorities.
Maybe one of, maybe one other thing to consider too, there are a lot of groups where we could make presentations or speak to them briefly. I mean, there's a homeowners group, there are some neighborhood councils or neighborhood associations, lots of groups. Maybe one of our tasks is to come up with a list of, I know the city's website at one time had a list of community groups, I think, but maybe all of us can just submit a list of groups that we know about. There's a Women's Civic League. I mean, there are just lots of them out there where they routinely have speakers. Just a suggestion, but that might be first avenue for a foray out into the community.
We can do that if you'd like at the work plan meeting.
I think other than the putting together the group, I think which I'm pretty sure the city already has a list of the large HOAs or the community-based organizations, but we should make a short list of, what should we talk about? Like, the cool asphalt presentation, the pavement that we got. It's great to tell us, but it's the HOAs, it's the people out there. The city will eventually put out an RFP and they'll get the information, but it's the less sophisticated, smaller organizations out there that pave their own streets, whether it's a church group and they have a large parking lot, or an HOA. Those are the ones that are less informed, and they need us to go out there and, inform them that, when you do, please take into consideration X, Y, Z. If you do plant, in your area, these are some of the things that you should take into consideration. Let's be the ambassadors of the city, ambassadors of sustainability out there. And we can each take an area and, it's an idea. I mean, we can either divide it up by geography and say, this is the district, we can use the school district or something, the districts, or we can each specialize in an area and say, I'll be the speaker for the Sustainability Commission whenever we get a request to go talk about X topic or Y topic. It gets us out there. This meeting's great, but I have to say, I would challenge if there's more than 15 people watching Channel 6 right now or care about, what we're saying.
And us speaking out might, I don't want to use the word inoculate, but there are unpopular things that come down the pipeline with council when you have to roll out new programs. To comply with SB 1383 is immensely expensive, very expensive. So I'm not saying the city's going to have a solid waste rate increase, but some of the programs we implement will require rate increases or additional fees or something. So I think people have a better basic understanding of why these things might be coming about. Just that the environmental regulations are tightening. Particularly in the solid waste field, they're going through the roof, really. So maybe could help.
Well, and education also seems like the slide presentation we saw earlier from Kathy. I think some people just don't know you shouldn't have grass growing all the way up to your tree. And so I think if we just educate people a little more, because I don't think people are, intentionally trying to kill trees. They just don't know. Or they think trees water themselves or something because, they have roots and, whatever, and the effects that the drought has. There's a lot going on with tree disease in general, just from stressed trees getting all kinds of pests, and it's a big problem. So,
what would the meeting on the December work plan meeting look like? What's kind of the vision for that right now? Is that something we have to decide on, or is there already an idea?
Give us homework.
Well, based on the previous meeting, discussion was to have a discussion during a commission meeting and have it be public. What was going to do is take these kind of, as a suggestion of one of the commissioners, was to have a survey so you can rank them, and then you can then identify and discuss what you want your priorities be based on how you all rank the areas, and then you can start discussing what projects you want to do and then identifying who leads each area. But we can do other activities if you have any in particular in mind that you want to do.
So theoretically, this would look like maybe a list presented up of all of the ideas that have been generated thus far, and we would go around and prioritize them together at this meeting, is the idea.
Yes, because
Okay.
That was the wish of the commission, to have it during a commission meeting and as a public meeting.
Okay.
And are those ideas being developed right now, or are we doing that on the spot at that meeting?
Do you mean the activities or the ideas that you want to prioritize?
Like the ideas that we're going to see on the screen that we're going to prioritize, is that predetermined, or are we doing
survey responses?
Got it. Okay.
So if you want to continue responding to that survey and continue to add ideas, please do so we can make sure we capture everything.
okay. So the survey is still open. We can do it a second time, or
You can if you want. The survey is still open. I don't know what each of you submitted, so I guess it could be an eighth entry.
oh, I see. It's like it's anonymous or something.
Yes.
Oh,
it's,
interesting.
No names or emails were collected, so it's completely anonymized.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe we should just send you an email with our top 3 things we'd want to champion.
If you want to, if that's easier for you.
Okay. Does anyone have any other questions or comments?
I think this is tangential, but important to understand. Like, what is the timeline of the climate action plan? Because I feel like a lot of the stuff that we will want to prioritize as part of our work plan will include the development of the climate action plan, which ultimately is really what we're here to do, frankly.
Commissioner Bartros, thank you for that question. So we've selected the consultant. We're just doing the contract right now. So the aim is to start the work October with the consultant, and it'll be an 18-month project. I can more than happy to share with you the work schedule. But initially, it's going to be a lot of outreach. It's going to be the first couple of tasks. So a couple of months in before we start looking at mitigation strategies. But within the scope of work, we have asked the consultant to come back to the commission at those critical times before those, mitigation strategies start to be, decisions made on them, but coming to light. This is the feedback we've had from the community. This is our greenhouse gas inventory profile. These are the kind of wedges or areas that we're going to be working in to start reducing our emissions, and then asking for commission, within these different wedges, these are potential strategies that we're looking at. What does the commission feel like about these strategies? Let's get your input on those strategies. So we're very cognizant of making sure that the commission is part of that process during the development. And I think, the development and identifying those mitigation strategies is right. It's just the very, very beginning. So I think you're right in terms of as you see and adopt and look at these potential different mitigation strategies, the commission can take on a little bit of ownership and sponsorship over those particular strategies to make sure that they are followed through and that we are implementing them in the most effective way possible. So that answers your question.
So would there be opportunities, like you mentioned that the company would, or consultant would be doing outreach, like if we're aware of an event, like in our neighborhoods or something, could we say, hey, come have a table with this and collect outreach or something? Would they be open to that?
So in the RFP and the response, they've identified a fairly extensive outreach strategy, but yes, we will be providing them information on outreach events that the city is doing and where they occur, so they can begin to build that where they feel it's appropriate into that outreach plan. So I don't know whether I've given the commission the RFP with the winning response, but I'd be more than happy to send that to the commissioners so you can read the extensive outreach and other activities that they're undertaking as part of this.
Right. I know, like cruise night, a lot of times there's booths there that the city has, and since there's so many people there, and my neighborhood has events that can attract quite a few people that are sometimes hard to reach, some non-English speaking households and so on that come to that. So it would be good to help spread the word on some of these, or even if it was just passing out flyers, making them available or something to send them to something with a QR code that we could hand out. So, right. Does anyone have any other comments about this? Okay, so it looks like we're on toward the next agenda item.
Next agenda item is 6, Sustainability Office Updates.
The only update I was going to give was regarding the Climate Action Adaptation Plan, so thank you.
Well, didn't the Shoal Canyon issue come up again at council?
Right, yes. Yes, I believe that came up at the September 20th. And the City Council voted 3-1 to delay moving forward on the Shoal Canyon biogas plant contracts. And at that meeting, Council decided to, as I say, delay the contract decision, and they asked staff to go back and research a number of items such as better cost-benefit analysis. I'm not sure exactly on what topics that exactly was. Research cleaning the landfill gas for use in fuel cells and other applications. Clearly understanding the energy output and degradation of the landfill over its closure. And then clearing a fire plan with multiple exit routes. Asking staff to commit to real tangible progress on city-sited solar on rooftop and PV systems, and also provide firm assurances to the community that the biogas plant will not turn into a natural gas plant. So there's a number of items that, again, council has asked staff to review, and I'm not sure when they're going to return to council. They'll be returning to council within 4 months of that. So September, October, November, December, January.
And just to confirm, they do have a legally binding date. They have to confirm the contract, correct? Or was that not with Shoal? I was at the meeting and there was a lot thrown, so I don't exactly remember, but they voted to delay it. But I think they couldn't delay it like for more than 3 or 4 months.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, Commissioner ex officio, Borisov. There were some price guarantees that were lost that will cost some additional funds, and so that will be rolled into the overall cost benefit analysis that'll be provided. So yeah, there were some price guarantees that were deadlines that were missed.
All right, there we go. Thank you.
Yeah, I wondered about that myself. When it came to this commission, it was like 45 million, but a couple months later when it went to council, it was 65 or something. I'm like, what just happened? So, yeah, and then I know, supply chain issues, labor shortages, things like that. But that was a big difference, and it was never clear to me like who's actually paying for this, like bonds, and so as ratepayers, or where the huge dollars were going to be coming from on that. So I'm glad they're looking into that. Okay.
And that concludes the updates from.
Okay, so next agenda item.
Next agenda item is adjournment, and we need a motion and a second.
So moved.
I'll second.
The meeting's adjourned at 7:42. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.